Hey guys, a quick reminder before we begin today's video to please like and subscribe and make sure you hit the notification button so you don't miss out on anything. Without any further ado, let's begin. The story unfolds in Mo City, where the protagonist, Lu Li, receives a message from his mother. In this message, he is told that if he wanted to quit his job, he will be able to, since they had already amassed $700,000 and they would be easily able to purchase a house in Mo City. He then leaves, expressing disappointment that he isn't the protagonist of his own story. Waiting for the light to turn green, he is then pushed to the side by a man in a business suit. While trying to yell at him for pushing him to the side, he then observes that he is able to see the man's remaining lifespan. He is then hit by a car. The protagonist is then amazed that he is able to see the people's remaining lifespan. He thinks that he must be hallucinating, but then he grabs a pocket watch out of his body. He then clicks it and he discovers that he has stopped time. He then observes that the rain stopped and he touches a man and accidentally steals 10 minutes of his lifespan. Realizing the extent of his power, he then decides to become a time vendor and sell people time for a profit. The next chapter, we're then taken to his home where he writes something in his notebook but then is interrupted by his roommate. Then questions if she interrupted him. He then happily says it's fine and that she didn't interrupt him. He then thinks that something good must have happened to him, as he usually never smiles. He then says that he is quite handsome like this. He then shakes her head, saying that she vowed to marry somebody rich, that she cannot be distracted by an average man. Alright, she might be a bit of a gold digger right now, but she gets better in the future chapters, I promise you. He remarks that he doesn't even have a mansion or a filled bank account. Sorry. He then heads into the room to sleep while the protagonist watches her. He remarks that she's beautiful, respectful, and smart, not something many average people have, but he is no longer an average person by any means. He has the power to control time. Treat it like any item and sell it at very high prices while he buys it very low. Now we see Mr. Lu on a bench looking around his Shinigami eye to see from who to buy some lifespan. But he's unable to find the right person to sell to. He then says that their leftover lifespan needs to be longer and that life is precious and he can just take it. He finds a man in a bear costume talking to his fiancée. His boss sees him and yells at him because he steals on the hours. Turns out he's a university student and he's desperate. He has a long lifespan of 65 years and he's willing to sell it. He is then paid by his boss. He then gets paid by his boss and says to himself that he's going to work even harder tomorrow because he is going to buy his girlfriend a new phone. My boy is certainly a simp. He then orders some cheap noodles and sits down saying that he's exhausted. But I gotta admire this guy. He's working very hard. I swear he's gonna get far away even without the money he's gonna get from Mr. Lu. Speaking of Mr. Lu, he just showed up and he's going to give him the proposition. He then sits down and speeds time up by 100 times. Student then stands up and looks around to see that everybody is frozen in time and he then asks about what's going on. He then asks Mr. Lu if he did it and he responds that he made a different space for them to speak. He then introduces himself as a time vendor and the student says that he's crazy and he never heard about a time vendor in his life. Mr. Lu then cooks up a lie about him wandering the world for many years, buying time from people who don't need it and selling it to people that need it. So the student asks him how does he know his surname, so Mr. Lu shows his remaining lifespan. He then says that he is very lucky that he is going to be able to live up to 80 years old and he asks him if he is willing to sell some of his lifespan to him. He then asks Mr. Lu if time can be sold and for how much. Mr. Lu then says that it depends from person to person and since he is a student he is going to pay him $300,000 for 1 year of his time. The student then starts thinking to himself that if he takes this deal he is going to make a lot more money than he is going to make from his part-time jobs. And that jobs in general exchange wasted time for money. Mr. Lu then says that if he hadn't reached a decision he could simply take his leave. The student stops him and yells at him to wait and that he is willing to sell 1 year of his life. And the chapter ends right here. If you'd like this manhwa, please like, subscribe and hit the notification button and make sure to tell me that you would like another part in the comments. Alright, see you.